Egunon, buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Welcome to this press conference offered by the cast and crew of the film La Reconquista, the Reconquest, a Spanish film, presented to the competition in the official section of the film festival. Here we have with us Jonas Trevor, the director, Itxaso Arana, Francesco Carril, Aura Garrido, Candela Recio, and Pablo Hoyos, the actors and actress, the producer Javier Lafuente, and musician Rafael Berrio. Let's commence the press conference whenever you deem pertinent.
Podéis hacer preguntas si queréis.
You can ask questions if you want. Hi. I would like to ask the actors, above all, how did you work so that the role throughout the life of the characters, the adolescents with the adults, for that to remain coherent? Well, how did you manage to do this? It was a beautiful process because the part of the adolescence was the first thing that was shot. And the truth is they have been our teachers in that because we didn't know nothing or practically nothing about our adult characters. So therefore, in my case with Pablo, it's going to see him, how he looked and how his gestures and how he moved while it was being shot. And I watched him. That's how the older adult Olmo was seeing Pablo and what he was doing when he was younger. We haven't stopped to worry about doing any work in construction. We didn't think that the younger Olmo and the, shall we say, less older younger Olmo had to look like each other. We had to find common traits, and it was all done through more intuitive and through observation. It was a real gift that they started to shoot earlier because it made you be in touch with that purity and that naiveness that we all have inside as an adolescent and teenager. And the idea was to not to lose that in our portrayal of the characters. It is true that we started to shoot, or perhaps it was the determining factor of the film, and most important for me as a director, was to decide to to shoot the end of the film at the beginning, and that was quite clear in my mind. And as we didn't work with a written script beforehand, we all talked about the fact that it was good to shoot with Candela and Pablo first to generate a memory, that's a material like a small rough diamond, and also to not calculate things. We thought it was a film that we could rhyme things. A lot of we weren't interested in whether they looked like each other. We thought it was very important that they didn't look like each other. So that's how they've told the story, and I think that the film stems from the work these two, Candela and Pablo, these two guys I've got here on my right, because we spent a lot of time together. They saw that the clumsy moment, that is when you less know about the film, and they had a lot of patience with me because we spent the whole summer eating ice creams and talking a lot and walking a lot together and going for walks. And I told them the story that I thought I was going to make. The truth was it wasn't too clear to me. And now and again, Itxaso and Francisco came along and we shared, in the case, things together. It was great because in the case of Candela, I met her many years before, that is to say, when she started to work as an actress, and we're with Itxaso in a play which was called Materia Prima, Raw Materials by La Textura. So therefore, I saw Candela and I felt that there was something very strong that connected me with her. And when I saw that I was going to make this film and I was going to address an issue with teenagers or even film teenagers, which is something that I wanted to do, but I was a bit afraid to do. Well, I immediately remembered Candela and I calculated it and I said, well, probably she'd have the right age that I would need. That's a 14-year-old girl, and we met her, and it was quite clear to see that I was going to make the film with her. In the case of Pablo, it was quite different and also beautiful at the same time because he came along through a casting process seeing a lot of kids in many high schools in Madrid, and all of a sudden we saw Pablo sitting down with a friend of his, very shy, such an extreme shyness that it made me feel very enthusiastic, and it moved me. And it was a film I was going to deal with the issue of shyness, and that is to say, and it was something, there weren't going to be a typical teenagers characters in a film, and it was constructed based upon them. And then after all those walks we took, it was true that it was a challenge, and then for the older actors to assume to take that on, but without the obsession of them looking similar. There are things that are similar and that are unsimilar, and they don't fit together in the film. And the film's a bit about that as well. There's some things that don't really end up fitting together. Hi. Having seen the film, especially the first section until they separate after the night they spend together, I was always thinking that Olmo error. He was making a mistake. He's got a couple. He's making a mistake. He's going to go with Manuela and so on and so forth. He was saying mistake, mistake, mistake. So therefore, and maybe reflect upon that. That is to say that perhaps the relations are a mistake, one mistake after another. And that is, I'm not too sure what words come to your mind apart from mistake, or perhaps other words. Yes, mistake comes to my mind, in my head quite often. I think Churchill said, we go from one mistake to another, I think Churchill said. And I think that we always make mistakes, and that's how we live together, with our mistakes and our errors. Those things, it's not too clear where we get things right, but we try to be very careful by talking about things that happen quite a lot with Francesco, where we were going to move. That is to say, a lot of ambiguity, that is to say, two people that get together, and the truth is be said, they don't know what to think. They recognize each other, and they feel familiar, but they also feel like strangers. And the film, the truth be said, especially the first part of the film, that's what you can see. And to me, what I most like about films is to see the faces of the actors when they work, and that is to say, you try to surround yourself with actors that have got that capacity to be able to describe with their faces. And it was great in the first part of the film to see that things are happening in their minds, but we didn't know what was happening in their minds, and there were a lot of contradictory things happening in their minds. And any actor, the actor does this in front of the camera. And then the interlude of the film, which is the center with Alda, that was, like, for example, I had to be extremely careful to work without exactly knowing what the character is thinking and what the character is feeling. A lot of ambiguous things at the same time. So therefore, I tried to work with actors who I consider them to be even writers in that sense. Hi, good morning. I would like to ask you about the title of the film. What do we have to reconquer? And if it has to do with learning to maintain the intensity of the first time, that it doesn't repeat itself as years go by. Could you talk about the music, which I think is also very important as the score for the film, and also to talk about the characters, because I don't know whether we live in the same country, but the characters are very super educated. They're very urban people. And is that a portrait of the Spain that I live in? Because it doesn't seem so to me. Okay, thank you. Well, I'll start with the last part of your question. But no, I believe that when sometimes they ask us, no, oh, is this a generational, and you're trying to reflect and portray your generation? No. I think that, and I know a lot of people who see films that I see, and they thank you because they feel that they're identified with it. We're not making sociological films, nor with a newspaper in your hand to try to come to a midterm where society, or the young society, can feel identified. Another thing that drew our attention is also that it draws your attention that a character, I don't think I've portrayed a very educated or cultured person, a character. No, I think they're normal people for me. They're Martians to me, and Martians of other films that I see, characters that I see in other films. These are normal characters that have read a few books and seen a few films like me, and I don't feel intellectual or a very cultural or educated person. But the same thing, what happens is that sometimes that's the way it works. With a pre-film in Malaga, for example, what draws your attention is that they're at lunch, they're having dinner, and they talk about a book, and that was like a scandal. And an author, a friend of mine, said, well, how strange that it's a scandal that in almost all films someone brings out a gun and kills 8 people. Nobody says nothing about that. And then It's quite normal, that is to say. And then I've got the feeling that cinema or films sometimes, and even in festivals even more so, so throughout the morning in interviews, for example, some journalists said, well, hey, it's quite curious to see this film in the context of this festival, because the truth is, this, because of the violence and how brutal, and many films have been, but yours, in your sense, is a much lighter film. And I like that by saying that, well, it's great that we bring along this film to this film festival, and also would like to claim that films don't have to be excessive. Some films have to be over the top, that is to say, and there's got to be a big explosion, or 8 people killed, or there's got to be a monster or something very intense, or they've got to fuck incredibly so that they get along together. No, it's great to make a film where those things don't happen, what don't happen to me. And I never even fucked crazily. But so therefore, to make a film, to do this in a civilized term perhaps, is to make a film which is measured, shall I say. We have to play with a certain measure of things and balance it in a certain way so that it can work. So, and then I've forgotten exactly what everything you asked me. Yeah, the music. Yes, the music. The truth is, the music is important, because at the end of the day, the songs with him, which we worked with, it's not that you put a song on in a given moment in the film. I want the songs to be integrated organically within the film. We've worked upon that in previous films, and this is another step forward, because we've got the privilege of using Rafael Berrios' music, we like very much. We had seen his concerts, and we lived what was to be in a Rafa Berrio concert. We thought that was quite curious and great at the same time. But Rafa understood the film better than anyone, because I held a very clumsy conversation over the phone with him. I don't know what I told him, but quickly said, well, listen, I composed a song when I was more or less your age now, that I think was the same things that you're saying to me over the phone. And I'm a fan. I didn't know that song, because it's in a record, it's very difficult to find. And when I found that song and the record, everything was there. It seemed that song, I understood the film that I wanted to make and that I was going to make, is that we're always beginners, or we're always... And his original version, 1990, and it's sung by Rafa, and it's a film, and to see how Rafa sang it nowadays, he'll tell us better, because I asked him to compose an original song, which was La Arcadia in Flor, and that surprised me as well. And he said, what do you want the song to talk about being the song of the film? And I had no idea at all what the film was about. Well, and that's why I'm going to talk about the title. It was the Reconquest. The Reconquest is a way of talking about a lot of things that I had the promise of, feeling of time, of colors, and first kiss, pauses in the film, and so on, and to reconquer them, and then how characters that meet again, like Manuela Itzazo's character has left and she's come back. She doesn't really know where she's at. So therefore I told Rafa all of this, and he wrote, and nevertheless you feel pity. You don't even feel pity, but the pity of not feeling pain, but nevertheless the Arcadia has to be in flower. Okay, and that's what the film is about. You don't know exactly what's happening or whether you're feeling pity or not, but nevertheless you're feeling something is beating, that you're segregating something. And he's great in this, and he knew how to put it in that way, in that marvelous way in the song. I think Jonas has said everything. Well, Jonas did ask me to make a song for the film, and immediately I thought in Arcadia. What's the Arcadia? Nobody knows what an Arcadia is. I thought that's strange. Nevertheless, the Arcadia is is a place where everything is completely intact still, where everything can be recovered. The whole song talks about a broken relationship in the past. and behind the doors is perhaps behind the bronze doors of time. And that's where Arcadia is. The Arcadia is in flower. We don't know where, but where for the cherry tree and its splendor and so on and so forth. It was easy to write the song because I only had a copy from nature, or basically as Jonas. I told Jonas, I was in Remayuri for 17 days in the Rioja in Álava. Gemma left me there isolated for 18 days in a cave. I copied everything from natural. All I had to do was look around me. But Remayuri is a true Arcadia, and that's how I wrote the song. I hope it fitted well with the film, as well as the old songs that Jonas has recovered, that were always beginners, absolute beginners, or with the song that finishes the film. Next question, please. Yes. On the one hand, I want to ask Jonas Treva, why did you choose González Iglesias' poem? I was with the sister of the poet in Salamanca. I studied with her. And whether that red globe is a metaphor of the passing of time. The red balloon is a metaphor of the passing of time. And also, Rafael, I didn't want to ask you this, but after you've said, I feel obliged to, as a fan, whether for your song upon the Arcadia you enjoyed the marvelous paintings of Vicente Armestoy in Where You Went to write the song. I forgot. Yes, the red balloon. What did you say? Passing of time. Oh, and the poem. Yes. Well, the truth is that's the book that accompanied me the most. It's a poem, a book by González Iglesias, who's a contemporary, a marvelous poet. And it's his last book, which is called Confiado. And he's exceptional. And it's the book that most accompanied me through the entire making of the film. And I wanted to leave that verse there as a... Sometimes films, it's strange that they claim that you use a quote, but nevertheless books, that's normal to open up with something where you say that it has helped you to show what you want to demonstrate later on, such as in the film. But I placed it there at the last moment, and someone said the other day that means that the film is dedicated to the future, and I like that because it is true. Because it's a film that seems that it thinks in the past, but it's thinking about the future, it seemed, and I thought that was good to put there and place it there and honest. And the red balloon there's something that you know what happens when you make a film, many things emerge on the way, and some are coincidences which are great, but and you want to take Angel Rebollo, who's my art director. We started to think about balloons all of a sudden, and as an image of the film with the idea of aerostatic balloons, for example, and we were looking at balloons, and this had something to do with the conscience, because the film was talking about the conscience of time, and we saw the balloon there, and going through Madrid, we saw that marvelous, beautiful shop of engravings, and we saw balloons, and then we made a selection that you saw in the shop window of the balloons that we like the most, and that one got stuck in our minds, and it has to do with that. They say the film is a moment. It is a sparkle, for example, with something that sparkles. It's nothing really specific in the film, but I thought it was important for it to appear there and to include it in the final credits as something clean, as a background image with a red sky. And then I thought that in that engraving all of the colors of the film, that ended up being very important, that were designed by Laura Renau, who always works with me. She mixed a lot of colors which were almost crazy-like, with reds and blues and purples and colors which are unforeseeable, and they were all in that in that engraving of the 19th century that you see on the screen. You place them there because otherwise it would be almost indecent not to do so. Hi, good afternoon. your films, I see that, and there's a quote, or or voluntarily or involuntarily, you do this. But here I saw a lot of things. The meeting and I think it's a fantastic gesture with the motorbike and the sequence of the kids who are 15 years old. And I would like to ask, you might be tired to ask to answer this question or to talk a bit more. Could you tell us about why in this film I saw there's Autocita, for example? It's interesting because, especially with regards to the first film, which is a mirror to this film, and how the spaces that are repeated and how you leave some scenes that don't finish when they have to. You've left them much longer so that those spaces have more meaning, and you've made those scenes last a bit longer in the editing room. Thank you very much for so many beautiful observations. Yes, it is true that you've seen my films in dealing, I imagine, and it's very good that that's the case. That, well, you make films thinking about someone to say what you just said, so thank you very much for your kind words. But on the other hand, the references I've used, this is something that is said to me a lot. But I know that many directors that I know that have told me that they work a lot from and use their references. For example, they even print photos or fragments of films. They say, we wanted this, that, and the other. This is the idea. But the truth is, I never give my cast or crew, nor my art director or anyone who works with me on a technical side, because I don't understand it. But the references are there because we've all seen those films. And if you look that side of, you see that side of thing, it's great. And we can see that his film and next to ours, and it can give more light to ours. That director you're talking about, or Stacy, and that beautiful teenager film, of course it forms part of you. And so therefore it's great if all of a sudden they form part of you and you see them once again on the screen on a certain way. It's a dialogue between us two, or between all of those people that want to do this. So therefore I think it's got a lot to do with this. One doesn't go to the cinema to make a film with its references, and I'm more and more aware of this. What you do is you go and you want the film to happen. That say, and when the shoot, I say, I don't think I'm directing the film too much. I'm just in it. I'm in the shoot. I don't direct much. I don't have any directives and guidelines to think of what a director should be like. I'm there. Obviously, we talked a lot about this. There are many decisions and choices that you've made. But the other day, 2 days ago, an email, Andres Duque, who's a director who I admire very much, and he said, well, okay, after seeing the film, he said, what we're doing is not direct. He said, very beautiful, it's like channel affection. And that is a good way of defining the profession as I understand it. There are a series of affections and things that you surround yourself to make a film. What you do is to direct that and channel it in a film, but at the end of the day, you're cinematographically. But the films, I make them from there, not from any references, but from my true and pure affections of the people with whom I make the films with, or shoot the films with. And so therefore, I'm not too sure whether I've answered your question. Oh, hi, Jonas. I think that your film is much more daring than those that break cars and explode and cause bridges to fall down. And you do it your own way and how you feel. I would like to know whether the feelings are your special effects. You'll never shoot Star Wars, I imagine. Yeah, we'll probably do it in a completely different way. We would have to see what result that would achieve. Yes, well, the truth is that it's feelings at the end of the day. So it's difficult to explain it because where your films come from the inside, but you use that material at the end of the day. The only thing you want is to make a film that is genuine, and this isn't that evident at times. And for it to be genuine, you've got to be surrounded by authentic people and genuine people. All of my technical crew are all genuine. They're all very different, and so are all the actors, and that makes it easy to make a film that has its own personality. And so what you want is to not do something that's similar to aspire to be like life, but for it to be life, to be a little bit of life. It's a bit pretentious to say so, but I think what one aspires to, that's what one aspires to, and you do what you can. You go there to try to create that. They say we're not from the art sense, but from a pure creational sense, and that's why you try to make. I made this film. I always say it's like the film that I thought more about the audience, not in the sense that sometimes I see some directors said, I've done it thinking about the audience, thinking about people. That sounds a bit false, presumptuous, and so to think about how the audience thinks. But thinking about the audience that has to go through a cinematographic experience, which is intense. And for me, the obligation that we directors have and filmmakers is to continue to create intense and beautiful film experiences so that people continue to want to go to the film theater, and you want to continue to see these types of films that you want to see. And this film, in that sense, is thought of from that direction, that slant, because I knew it was going to have a difficulty. It's going to ask the audience something more, because I think it's more my most classical film. I thought we were going to use a structure that we thought about from the beginning. It was going to be constructed or a wager in favor of the audience to renew their faith in the film, not only in that first faith when they buy the ticket, but to renew it time and time again. That's what this was going to give a certain drive to the film, and it's also its Achilles tendon, because sometimes we want to understand the film after 10 minutes, and then know what's going to. Well, I want to make a film that can be suspended in time, that is to say, or suspended. So basically, what's happening? Is anything happening at all? Even to that level, and I think the film does have a couple of moments where, just when Francesca and Olma, she goes to the shower and he touches the coffee, the table, and so on and so forth. What is he doing? He's doing a couple of things with his eyes, and you go, here they are. You don't know what's going on or where the film is going to now. It's stuck at that moment, and that's the film that I felt like making, that sort of approach. And in turn, asking the audience to have a leap of faith, waiting until the end, and not to fall into, to make a teenager's film, to have the impunity to go into the past easily. I think that films are virtuous. You can jump into the past and go forward, and this is a temptation that many directors, and I myself, have fallen into. But I think it would be great to not do this. I say, as you can't go back into the past, if we're going to go back because it's a film and because films are better than real life and we can go back in time, but it's not something easy, something that's costly, something that you can access and you can, so that the film deserves to a certain extent. And that was my excitement in making this film. I knew I was going to make it for me in a genuine way and also fragile, I'm sure, at the same time.
Berger from Germany, and I would ask the question in English language. First, I would like to comment on what you just said about special effects. I think in this film there are special effects which are not as abstract as just feelings. For me, for instance, the scene in the dance club or when the father thinks are very strong special effects, I think. And I wanted to ask why, I was wondering why you put in the scene when he comes back home to his girlfriend. And the first thing she says to him is, "You stink, take a shower." And I was wondering why you had this scene, because the conversation they have after he comes back from the shower is very different. Is it to add some suspense to the film, so that the people might think that after he had this experience with his first girlfriend, that this might turn out totally different?
Sí, gracias, muchas gracias. Sí.
Yes, thank you very much. it was great to think about the film as a suspense, that the film could have a certain amount of tension despite the fact that nothing's really happening. It's something that's too obvious, that is to say that there be a certain amount of level of tension when he comes home and he lies down. Well, the truth is, the film changes even from the point of view. He goes and has a shower, and we stay with Clara, the character that Auda portrays, and it's great. They say, what's going to happen now, and how is she going to confront this? And we, as the audience, we've seen the night, what happened the night. How are we going to place ourselves at the breakfast scene? The breakfast scene was with 2 shots, and it was written together on a weekend just prior to shooting it, and we shot it. It was on a Saturday and Sunday. We made the decisions of how that scene was going to be shot, and keeping that and maintaining a certain balance and tension level, which was quite specific. We didn't know really well. It's a sequence that we could have gone many different ways, but we decided to measure it that way, which I think is also beautiful at the same time, and can move you, I think. And perhaps that doesn't say, when people say your boyfriend or girlfriend will get angry at you, yeah, that's great, but I'm more interested in this happening because of other reasons, okay? And I'm not too sure whether I've lost the plot here in answering your question vis-a-vis feelings. The truth is, when I work with them, they're more interesting than the character. They say the actors are more interesting than the characters that they portray, and they construct that scene really just like all of the previous scenes as well. It's a film made, the truth is, in very large blocks of scenes where it allows the actors to work very well and do their job and to develop, and they can question themselves and even make mistakes. This doesn't happen in many films because everything needs to be very accurate and you can't miss a beat. But here there are a lot of imprecisions, which are very good, and we believe that they form part of what was happening in the film, okay? Of not knowing what's going not knowing what's going on. Okay, vis-a-vis the relationship he has with his girlfriend, which I think is especially interesting, and it's a nexus or like a bridge between both parts, is that a clear, conscious decision that this relationship should be so adult that the conversation they maintain can be so paused and relaxed and very understanding and comprehensive, and for it to be a good relationship at the end of the day. That has a lot of weight in the understanding of the decisions that the main character portrays. A question for the actors: I'm interested that the house would be all disorganized and untidy. Yes, untidy. And more than untidy, it's that it should be, for there to be a lot of white. We spent a night which was very contaminated with colors. And I think the colors in these films are very important for me. And the truth is, the first part at night is all crazy, but I thought it great. And that interlude at home is almost a rest period. We made the decision to leave the walls without any shelves or any cupboards, and to construct that space as of there. And this was the idea, to construct the mood of the characters, and then to sit them not in a sitting down like this, but sitting down on the floor. You make those decisions as a director that you understand, that it helps the actor to understand the scene they're portraying. And it was quite demanding at that time because they were precisely achieving that balance. And we talked about the decision of it being so. I'm not too sure how to define the relationship, whether it's educated or well-mannered. I think there's a lot of respect there, but the respect is in the whole film, because even Manuela's character at night, she's very respectful within a situation where she could have forced things and brought about everything in a different way, and it could have fucked up her life. But she doesn't do it, and it makes it much greater. And it's great that Auda's character places herself in a situation and she doesn't accuse him. She laughs at him and takes and with Oda, for example, the order of the questions alterated the meaning of everything. We thought about that quite in detail, and what I liked is that she felt she should feel two forces, internal forces, which are contradictory. Let's say, seeing your partner who is more or less relaxed and a bit dull, and he's gone out in a swing jam session in the evening and dancing, and that's strange at the same time. But as a couple of his couple, he says, well, okay, this is great that you've done this. This has probably released you and cool, but he hasn't done it with you. He's done it with somebody else, and that generates, I'm sure that the character perhaps doesn't know how to act at that time. But I mean, the truth is, you don't know how to act to portray the characters, because you do it that way because this happened, that happens, and then that happens, and the result is it's not that clear. I'm not too sure whether you understand or whether you want to say anything. No, I think you've explained things very well. Hi. Precisely, you've talked about when working how you measured things, and I would like to ask the cast, the younger actors, as regards to those silences that you have in practically all of the scenes. The dialogues are there, but the silences seem to be very important and say a lot. When you did the scenes, how did you work upon this? How did you understand each other? How did you come to understand each other in that way? And I want to ask Jonas also whether it was quite, you had that clear in your mind, that part of the teenagers, for example, whether you wanted to include that there from the outset, or did you want to tell everything as a coincidence from the adults, or suggesting without including that section? As regards to you say about those silences, I like the idea that you've picked up on that, and it drew your attention. That is to say, I'm not too sure whether it's too clear how we worked upon this. It wasn't something really conscious. We were conscious of, but the only certainty I have is that anything that I'm certain about it was that when there are no words, that's when you've said everything you have to say, you stay in silence, and silence is much more eloquent than any excessive dialogues. So therefore, I don't know, there was something that Pinter says, who's a theatre playwright. He distinguished between pauses and silences, and for him silences talked about the past, and the pauses talk about what you're going to say. And I felt quite often, especially in the first part of the film, what we're doing are silences, that process of recognizing each other, and those silences where we didn't speak, that's where the past arose or appeared. That's the way, at least anyway, I worked upon things. It's true that Jonas works upon about situations, and one doesn't really know whether that would happen to us in real life. And he says, I had the feeling, I sent an email to Francesco, I don't know how to perform this. How do we portray this? And I think that we proposed not doing what we already knew beforehand, and to confront a certain of a large silence. All to the end of the shoot, we didn't know whether we were going to kiss or not, and therefore we didn't know how the night was going to develop. And that, upon that not knowing, there's a tremor that can be seen, and you can almost breathe it in the film. I must say that I liked the fact that we work with silences, because in life silences always exist, and they form part of our communication as well as using words. And quite often in films we confront a lot of dialogues, and it seems if you don't have a dialogue, you can't tell the stories, things that you want to, the story you want to tell. But the truth is that things happen, be there a dialogue or not. Sometimes it's more a distraction or an extra, which is not always that necessary. And those silences, I think, can have much more to say, as you were saying as well, perhaps have more meaning. Well, I think that everything has already been said. That's the way it is. In a film, you can use more words, and you can say them because they're written down in the script, and you have to say so. But in the real life, you need that time. You need that time to think about what's happening and to understand the situation, to get involved in your own world, and to talk to other people without words, to understand each other better. If we need it all the time, if we needed them in the film, it was necessary that our characters could breathe, think, and relax, and to laugh in silence. So therefore, that's what we showed. And as they've said, I think there was a place for silence that was that important. Yes. Okay, last question, please. Ahora Garrido, well, two questions. And one is how you prepared your character, and another, Thomas Mann's quote, and as an anecdote of a patient, whether that's the way of reproaching the life attitude of the couple. I never thought about that. This doesn't emerge in any of our conversations. No. How did I prepare my character? There's not much preparation. There aren't any real characters. Yes, there are characters. Well, anyway. Well, they end up being, because they make them at the moment when you're shooting, but prior to this, it is true. It's the most special thing about my character is that she's very mature, that she's got the ability to manage conflict, which is not normal. We're usually more childlike when we confront and manage conflict, and that was the beautiful and the most difficult thing at the same time. But Thomas Mann, it never occurred to me. I never thought about it. It didn't emerge in any conversation. It had more to do with introducing the day-to-day life at the end, or daily life at the end. There are two couples at three different moments in time. His couple, the re-encounter, their meeting, it's a long time has gone by and they haven't seen it, and see how they react to that. But we have a story as well of many years of living together, life in common, confidence and trust, and all that has to be generated. And when you have a couple or a partner that you live with together, and you've got all of that trust and confidence, you maintain a conversation, and you have things that take place between you, or that occur between you, that sometimes makes no sense and don't respond to anything. You just share life, and you share your whole life. And that's why it was beautiful when he came along, and the first thing I said, have a shower because you stink. And I thought that's great, because that can only be done with a couple, a partner that you have a lot of trust and confidence in. And that's quite probable that might happen. The first thing you say, hey, go to the shower. I can't bear how much you smell. And Thomas Mann, and it goes along those lines, that say that at the end of the day, the most important thing is I believe the most important thing for Clara is what they have constructed in common. And what they've constructed in common is to be able to tell him all of those things. And then plus that, it's exactly what Auda says, that book, with what it might mean, the truth is, it's just a day-to-day detail of her life. And that we're not seeing, we see the film is so concentrated. We want it to be so essential that you practically don't see anything. You don't see anything in the film that's not them. So therefore, those types of details at the end of the day tell you a lot, and they open up another window for it. And that is, you imagine what she will be like, a character, let's say the film that you did make, that you could have made, and answering the question that you asked before, whether I decided to film one part or another or not. At the end of the day, you can do many, many films from one single film. There are so many films buried under this film, because I think it's got another layer of films below it. And we were going to shoot a film in Buenos Aires that's probably got to do with what Ichazo says at the beginning. So therefore, the films are made based upon of burying things. And The Magical Mountain was a film, was a book that I read it about 3 summers ago with my parents on holiday, and it hit me a lot. But it had a lot of impact of how he manages time. That novel shows, which is a great work of art upon how to manage time. This film deals with how time goes by and how it's managed, but in a much more humble and smaller way. But I thought it was good for it to be there to a certain extent, because it also formed part in a clear manner that of the film that I wanted to make was about how to feel time going by in one night in an ellipsis over 15 years. There were several pieces of time with different intensity, all of them mixed up at the same time. So that's it. And it's good to finish with the Magic Mountain. Thank you very much to the entire crew, and thank you very much to all of you for attending.